Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the Bad League, Bad Pods podcast. I'm Zach Fuller. I'm here with Ben Dunn, and we have we don't have a whole lot to talk about this week.
Yeah, it'd just a short episode, really.
Yeah. We obviously had Phoenix last night. Before we get into that, let's start on a lighter note. Ben, how was your golf thing this morning?
Oh, it was good. A very successful tournament down here in Myrtle Beach, as always.
Right.
I believe the same could be said about Dylan's little flight that he had to control. So successful day leading to a little bit later of a recording, but I wasn't going to miss this episode for the world. I already missed Martinsville. I wasn't going to miss Phoenix.
Yeah.
Because this was like Martinsville's cooler older brother.
Yeah, this turned into what I think we all thought Martinsville was going to be. Yeah, so I think Ben has a couple of Miller Lights on standby. I've got some Lone Star beer. This episode called for it.
Yep,
so.
Absolutely. Cheers to everyone
cheers.
out there. This episode is brought to you by nicotine pouches and beer.
Yeah.
That's the sponsor this week.
Well, and we're dropping it later in the evening, so some people may be enjoying an adult beverage while they listen, but
it's like a happy hour episode for us too.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it. So, who you want to go first about your race or me?
Let's see. I'll go first.
Yeah, you finished higher, I think.
Yeah, I think also with this finish, it was I believe now we're back to being tied for top fives because you got one last week.
I think I'm a couple ahead because I sent out.
Damn it!
I sent out that stat report initially when you responded, and it was wrong. So I think I'm
nice.
I'm slightly ahead, but while you talk, I'll pull that up and just confirm.
I'll work on it. It was a good. It turned out to be a good race for me. It did not start very well. I did not have a ton of speed or confidence to begin the race, but found it, especially once the lights went out, or the lights came on, should I say. Once the sun set, I don't know what happened, but I just felt so much better. Track cooled off, I think, about 9 degrees from when we started to when the lights went out. Yeah, I believe we started, it was about 88, 89, and then by the time the race was done, it was down in 80, 79 range. So a big cool off of the track, and apparently that's exactly what I needed. After being a bit of a wrecking ball early, shout out to Cody and Donnelly. My bad. I was able to clean it up, avoid some of the other messes. I just got my shit out of the way early. That's right. What that was my plan. And was able to clean it up and get some track position. Took a risky strategy. I think I took my last set of tires on like lap 102 or something like that with a lot of race left. I took tires with the other guys that were around me that I felt like I was racing. And it paid off because it got me up front towards the end. I think I wound up restarting third on the last restart and riding it out to the end, only losing 2 spots to some guys on better tires. So not upset. 5th place, pretty pumped. I believe that's my second top 5 this season. A good finish at a track that I didn't feel great about early on. When we were on that long run, I was pretty terrible. So I didn't take care of the tires well on that tiny little stint we had that was a little bit quote unquote long run. In comparison to everything else, it was an endurance race. Yeah, felt good. Felt good to get a good finish and to wheel that thing in there and to just block the hell out of Christian with every bone in my body to try and maintain 5th. So successful night for me. What about yourself?
Yeah, well, I had a much more eventful race, I feel like. Just going back to you real quick, that was your second top 5 of the season, and it was your 77th all time, and I'm at 78. So
okay,
closer than I thought. Yeah, because you've had a couple top 5s here since I've had my last one. But yeah, my race, it started out well. Qualified 7th. We had that big update before, so I really did not get a lot of time to to practice qualifying. I felt like on the long run I was going to be good no matter what, because I remember the recruitment race we did here. I ended up winning, and I felt good on the long run. It was all about track position, right? Like if you got in front of somebody, and if you could run the high lane good enough, you could really hold them off. So I felt good on the long run, but anyways, qualified seventh. First couple cautions, made our way up to third. And then I think we had a pit stop, and I ended up getting in front of Jack, who I knew was probably going to be um, the guy you needed to beat yesterday. Him and Dylan were really good. Owen was really good as well. That's kind of been the story early on
Yep.
in these races this season.
Yep.
So I got in front of Jack, and then Austin appropriated the lead at that point, and battling with him. That was on that long run.
Yeah, he was
Uh,
quick in that middle part of the race.
he was, yeah. Um, he built a pretty good gap because Jack and I um, were Jimmy Jacking, for lack of a better term, for second, and let him get out to a pretty sizable lead, and then we ran him down, and I think Dylan got around Jack at some point there, but I was I ended up getting past Austin and leading a lap, so that was I guess I led 2 laps.
Yeah, you got a whopping 2 laps that you
Yeah,
led there. Good job.
so I never actually got clear for the lead. Well, I guess I was clear at one point. I like had a slide job on him in 1 and 2, and then he got back to the inside in 3 and 4, and then he was on the inside of me going to the dog leg, kind of on my left rear, and it was just a miscommunication, and I was running the dog leg, and he was deciding not to, and so I spun myself off of his nose, and he spun as well, and we can go into. I ended up talking to him about that, and it kind of explained why he did that, but we can go into that
Yeah.
later. Um, so went back in the field and kind of started working my way back up, and then another very similar incident to that with Dan. And again, this is just a miscommunication. The guy on the outside's wanting to run the dog leg, and the guy on the inside feels like I'm gonna hold him up there, which they're within their rights to do, but it
Yep. Yep.
it results in a crash more times than not. I feel like, but um, yeah, and then so more damage, more back in the pack, and then had a run in with Brandon, which I think was probably more my fault than not. Um, he was kind of trying to run a tighter line, and I wasn't really completely aware of that, and so I ended up turning him. And yeah, Brandon had a pretty rough race as well. We'll get into that later, but somehow
Yeah.
I made it back up to eighth. I was probably going to be in sixth or seventh, but I had a lot of damage, and so I just started kind
Hmm.
of falling back as the laps wound down, and um, had a really cool battle with Judd on the last lap where we were it was a photo finish there
Yeah.
for
Point zero
eighth.
two four for
Yeah,
you guys. Right at the line. It was a hell of a close finish.
yeah. Going into one, because he was catching me at a pretty high rate of speed. Going into one, I was just like, I know he's gonna get to me, so I'm just gonna hold the outside, and I gave him the inside for turn 3, and then just slammed it into third gear and absolutely floored it. And I knew if I was on the outside there, I was gonna have the momentum, and I was fully expecting and would not have had an issue if he just Almirolaed me into the wall there, but he gave me plenty of room, and we had a good race to the line. But yeah, eighth place somehow. I feel like I'm okay with that. Um,
Yeah.
I
Oh
I
yeah.
definitely, with all those incidents, I feel like I probably should have been around 13th or 14th, but um, yeah, that's how these races have gone. I feel like Martinsville was the same way, where you just gotta grind it out and stay out at the end with all the cautions and just try to pick up as many spots as you can. But um,
Yeah.
definitely an eventful race.
Very eventful. Jack comes out on top. This guy, I'm getting sick of this guy already. I mean, geez, it's. But I will say, I noticed looking at the stats, it looks like Owen managed to steal the bonus point sweep from Jack. He's already done that
Yep.
to us once this season, and Owen was able to steal fastest lap, so that he did not get all three
Mm.
of bonus points there. So. Or he
Yes.
did start on pole, but Owen got him just barely in the fastest lap category.
By
Um,
.016 on the fastest lap.
yeah,
So.
both of them ran their fastest late in the race, so the more proof that a lot of people ran their fastest late in the race.
Hmm.
Not as
Well,
many,
with the
but
with the sun
more.
going down.
Yeah, more proof that the track cooling off really helped. One thing, before we dive into the race, what do you think? I thought it was pretty cool. This was our first experience with this new update and this new lighting stuff they're kind of
Yeah,
working on. There was a fear and a rumor going around that the lights wouldn't come on and we'd have another season one Daytona on our hands, but we it didn't happen. The lights kind of just slowly, gradually turned on, which I thought was kind of cool. It was much different than it has been in the past, where it's kind of just like poof, the track is lit and that's it. Like it was like they just flipped the switch
right.
and the lights came on. There was a little like change in the surface or a little blink in the track that I think everybody saw, but the lights weren't immediately illuminating the track, which I thought was pretty cool the way that it blends in. I think once they work on that a little more, it's gonna be kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess they're going for like a more realistic look.
Hmm.
Because before when the lights came on, yeah, it was super lit up. But this, I guess, looks more realistic. I'd have to go back and like look at an onboard of a night race there to compare it. But
Yeah.
I mean, I could see just fine. I mean, that's
Yeah,
really
me
all I
too.
care
Yeah.
about. So, if
That's
they
all
if it
I
if
was
they
I
feel
was
like
nervous.
that's more realistic, then yeah, sure. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm on
I
board.
mean, needless to say, I was sitting here getting a little nervous as the sun started going down, and there were a couple questions in our channel about what are we gonna do if the lights don't come on, if the
Yeah,
track just does that thing it did back at Daytona and just goes completely black. For those who may not have been around at season one, just a quick little recap: we had an evening race at Daytona where the idiot who made the lobby
yeah,
did not check the time properly, and the race went into sunset. Once it was Legacy Daytona,
yep.
the lights did not come on, and we had it as like a technical issue caution. We paused, and at this time we didn't have tire limits or anything, so we went and just created a new lobby, went back to the race, created the order again, and then finished the race. So I
What
was very
did you
fearful that
create
that
that
might
lobby
happen
or was
again.
that me?
One of us did. I know that one of us went and we just quickly hopped out and created the new lobby as fast as we could. Once
Yeah,
everybody joined, we got out there on our pace laps and got in order of the race, and then cleared all the flags and went back to race. And I think we had like 30 something laps left or something like that.
it was
It
something like
was
that.
it was interesting to say the least, but I was definitely fearful that that might happen again. Very glad that it did not, because I was quite worried about what we would even do there, especially with tire sets being a thing and not knowing who's on what.
Yeah.
It was going to get a little interesting decision wise, whether we just call it or what. I don't know, but it didn't happen. That's all that matters. So we're good.
That would have been an all-timer if that happened. I mean, with all the
Yes.
chaos and that would have been a. I mean, it already is an all-timer because of the stuff we'll get into later. But,
Yes.
yeah, that would have just added to it. So, where do you want to go next? I mean,
Whew, I don't know, man. I mean, I think that's it, right?
yeah,
That's
let's
I
move
think
on
we
to
pretty much,
on the Cup Series.
yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah,
I think I think where do we go from here?
I guess we
I
can
mean,
go to
I think
where
we just
probably everybody's looking forward to. We can talk about the beef that was going on in the chat
oh,
yesterday. I mean, that was very entertaining for me because
very
I wasn't
beefy for
involved in it.
sure.
Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, we
always
had
entertaining when you're not involved.
absolutely. So we had Roten and Dan. I guess you said you went back and saw they got into it a few times throughout the race. Um,
Yeah, a couple times, a couple of incidents that were just kind of racy, tight racing incidents that didn't really look that were kind of hard to put the blame on one, and then some other incidents that you know were
yeah,
a little more one sided,
yeah.
to
So
say the
I
least.
have I'm gonna share my screen here for those on the YouTube version. Um, this was the one that I think can you see that there, Ben?
Let me hop in here. I can see it. Yes, sir.
This was the one that I think was the catalyst for the messages being sent. Um, so you got they're three wide in front of Roden. He dives down to the bottom. It's an aggressive move, and then
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, aggressive move. Looks like he had a little wiggle, coming off the two there, almost like almost reminiscent of not much of a wiggle. That just
well,
kind of take it back. I take it all back.
I think Roden expected Dan to slot up in behind those two in front of
Yeah,
him, and just that didn't happen.
yeah,
Um,
and just a bit of some aggressive racing there, but
Tight racing for
That's
sure.
I mean, it was tight racing all night, man. It was crazy. That was one of the more fun things. We started out the race. I guess we can kind of just go from the drop of the green.
Yeah.
And we started out the race, and it was like 5 or 6 cautions right away, man. It was
Yeah.
brutal. Everybody's going for hero moves in turn one. We all think we're in the Cup Series, and we're 5 wide through the bootleg, and things were a little tighter than I think people were ready for,
Yeah.
and we had some early incidents. Once we got through that initial first stretch, though, we had a nice little run that kind of told some stories about some speed people may have had.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, to say the least, to get on that long run and to kind of see it. I think we were all hoping that would play out, and unfortunately, it did not.
Yeah. So the reason why that long run stopped was the deal with me and Austin, and
Yes, that's.
so I talked to him about this, and he said in an earlier season he was the position was flipped, so he was on the outside and somebody was on his inside, and he did what I did. He tried to run the dog leg, and whoever was below him got super pissed because they're like, well, if you're on the outside, or if you're on the inside, you need to you have the right to do what you want to do, and if you're on the outside,
Mhm.
you need to take care of that. And so because of that, now Austin's on the inside, and he's like, well, I'm just gonna run my line. And had I known that happened earlier in the CRS lore, I probably would have just stayed up high, but I was unaware of that. So that kind of explained his decision making there, because I was pretty annoyed by that during the race. But um,
I'm
I mean, I
trying to
guess I
think
get it.
back, and there's a chance that it might have been me, because I know I've had that incident happen. I know that it happened with I think it happened with Irby a long time ago, and I feel like it may have happened again to me as well. Where and like really, it's like I kind of get where he's at, because it's kind of like a mind game of like they're
Yeah,
gonna expect me to go down here, and I'm not going to, and I'm gonna
right.
force them into an uncomfortable position. But when they commit and just dive down like that,
There's
right?
nothing you can do at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just an
Yeah.
unfortunate incident.
And that was
Um,
my point, because I talked to him and Dan about it. I mean, looking back, like, I take responsibility for that. That is technically my fault, because I'm coming down on somebody, and they have the right to that space. But my point was, that's gonna that's going to result in a collision more times than not, because when you have a car in your blind spot like that, it's tough to expect that person to not run the dog leg. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if we're at a if we're at a Kansas or Chicago or Vegas, where you can cut down on the front stretch, and
It's
it's kind of
option.
optional. You can
Yeah,
and there's more time as well. Like, there's more time to see, oh, he's not doing that.
and there's more room.
Right.
It's if you go to do it and you realize that there's if you're on the outside and you're going to do it and you realize there's a car right next to you, you have a little more, like you said, time and room to correct yourself and not do that at the tight track like Phoenix. Once you commit, man, that's it.
Yeah. Especially with the angle that it's at, like, it's gonna be a wreck. If you make
Yeah,
contact there, it's gonna be a wreck. Yeah, I guess.
yeah, and
Go ahead.
all I was gonna say is I've noticed that the phone lines have started lighting up. We've
Oh, is that
decided to
right?
open phone lines. Yeah, we've decided to open phone lines for this show. See if we can get some callers who may want to have some input on
Oh,
some of the incidents last night. So we can definitely get into that here in a second. I can get a caller on the line.
yeah. Let's do
Um,
that.
yeah, here, hold on 1 second. I believe caller number one. I believe we have a Daniel from Wisconsin. Let's
Ah,
see what Daniel has to say from Wisconsin.
one of the main characters from last night's incidents.
Exactly. It helps when you drag the right thing, though. It definitely helps. Hold on 1 second.
We can make a cut here. So.
Yep. Dan from Wisconsin, you're on the air. Welcome. Hello. We'll let him figure out what he's doing here. He's been on hold for a while, so he may be
May have
taking a
stepped
leak or
away.
something like that. Yeah, that's all
Yes.
right. We'll put him on hold for just a second. We do have another caller on the line here. Hold on
Okay.
1 second. We'll get him in here.
I see the phone number on that. It looks like the area code might be Wisconsin as
Yeah,
well.
I believe we have a Joe from Wisconsin on the line too. Joe had a bit of an interesting race last night after making a return.
Yeah, we didn't get
And
into his deal, but I would like to
yeah,
hear from
maybe
him. Apparently, he had some mechanical issues.
yeah, maybe we could talk to him about it real quick. Joe from Wisconsin, you're on the air. Are you there? We have
Oh,
bad connect. Oh, hey, oh,
oh,
hello,
hello.
Joe. You're on the air. How we doing?
I'm on the air. Hi. How's it going? You know,
It's it's great. How are you?
first time listener, first time caller.
Well, welcome, my friend.
So
Yeah.
Joe, you had an interesting race last night. I know you had some uh maybe some mechanical issues. What was your take on kind of what happened and what ended your race?
Oh, so what happened is that inflation really hit the 06 team hard.
Right.
So we could only afford one pair of brakes for the season.
Which did you choose, front or back?
We chose the super speedway package brakes.
Oh,
You know,
so front left and right rear.
yeah, front, left, and right rear. Except they were only the Amazon brake rotors that you get for like $15. We had that
Yeah,
on the front, left, and the right rear.
Amazon
Um,
Basics brake rotors.
yeah, the Amazon Basic brake rotors, and we forgot the brake duct fans weren't plugged in, and we had too much tape on the brake ducts, so they just ended up letting go.
Wow, it's amazing that car even made it through inspection.
It is remarkable. I guess CRS is doing anything to pad their field sizes these days.
Well,
That could be
yeah.
the story with all the extra cars in the field. Joe, I know you left the race kind of after that incident. But did you get to see any of the other incidents? I mean, there was a plethora to choose from. Did you have any takes on any particular one?
Oh man, I saw Zach Roten body the hell out of Daniel Trotier multiple times throughout the race, and he got into me too. So Zach Roten was an absolute wrecking ball all race. He punted
Wow.
Austin into me after taking it 4 wide for no reason. Man, that 36
Wisconsin
car needs
strong
to
right
park.
here. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, he needs to be parked. He should be parked for this race and maybe the rest of the season just for that.
That is definitely a hot take. Ben, you got anything else for Joe?
uh, Joe, I noticed that you were running a Miller Lite car last night. I was just curious if you were running one of the 4 cars leftovers, or if you were able to work out a deal with Miller Lite yourself to bring in, more beer to CRS.
See, uh, Miller Lite decided that they wanted to sponsor a hometown kid,
That checks
and
out.
clearly they picked the better of the two with the two Milwaukee drivers, which is why Daniel Trotier was stuck doing some titty coffee bar for his paint scheme.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So you know they just made the right call, kind of. They got
Yeah.
some TV time. I was running up front,
That's
but
true. That is true. You had a good little run there for a while. First time back. How did it feel to be back in the car?
better than I expected.
I
That's
love
for
it.
damn sure. Yeah, my left foot started cramping up on the brakes, so I haven't had to use those in a very long time.
Yeah, especially when you're pushing the pedal as hard as you had to get that thing to slow down.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It was a hard time. We probably should have bled the brakes as well. We didn't think of doing that. So there's probably a lot of air in the system. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not too much because you take the ducts off completely. So we're gonna tighten up inspection next time you're in the race, just because of that.
That's probably a good idea.
So Joe, obviously this was your first race since what was it, like July last year? We've got, let me see. We've got 13 more races this season. How many of those can we expect to see the old '06 Mustang out on the racetrack?
I hope to be back next week at Chicago.
All right.
Nice.
But aside from that, it's really dependent on when I get funding.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll loan you another sponsor if you need.
All right.
Yeah.
Might have
Chipotle
to
is
take
pretty
you up on
nice
that.
as well. So
Yeah. I was looking for I was trying to court Brad for a sponsorship. I wanted a nice cold Brad car.
yeah, absolutely.
But the deal ended up falling through last minute, unfortunately.
Little NASCAR 09 Brad sponsorship.
Correct. Yeah. Come home after a long day, you get a nice cold Brad.
I'm having a nice cold Brad right now. I just want you to know that.
I'm glad to hear it.
Beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
Well, hey, look, thanks for popping in, Joe. We appreciate the call, and we'll have you back on in the near future, and hope to see you back on the track soon.
Yeah. Have a good. Thank you for having me on. God bless.
Yeah, man. Yes, sir. Well, that's I mean, I'm not surprised. Like I said, that Wisconsin, really standing up for each other there.
Right.
Big words with the wrecking ball term. I mean, geez, I didn't know this beef was it's not very lean beef. It's very
It's well done beef. I mean,
yeah.
It
Holy
cooked. It
cow.
cooked all night. I mean, they should have taken it off much sooner. It sounds like I messaged Dan. It looks like he may have had some issues. He couldn't hear us when he was in here, so I guess he's trying to work that out. But
It's probably that we've been dealing with the Discord update seem to get everybody
Yeah.
to with changing some audio things. So hopefully he can sort that out and we can get an opinion from him before this is over. But it just back to the race and everything. We also I want to just go ahead and highlight we had another. We've had a lot of new people racing with us in the league. We had another new guy. 23 car Devin Visnall made his debut. Unfortunately, didn't go that great. Hopefully, he didn't get the wrong impression and think that this league is just a total shit show because it just seems to be the short tracks where this is an issue. But happy to always have new drivers. Again, we fielded 20 cars, which is awesome. We've been consistently in that 15 to 20 range all season. I hope it keeps up, man, because it's awesome. That's 20 has always been a number I've said is like an ideal number for what we do. And it's pretty awesome to get that, and also to kind of have that added feature of like, hey, 5 people are going to get points.
Yeah,
I
like that a lot.
Yeah.
There's big point swings, especially like if one of the top guys gets down there and can't recover. I didn't really get to race around him at all last night because he ended up 65 laps down. So
yeah,
I didn't really get to see, but I mean. It sounded like he had fun. I heard him on the chat at one point. Like somebody apologized to him. And he was like, "It's all good." So, I mean, yeah, that race was definitely something. So yeah, hopefully he didn't get the wrong impression. Our other new guy, Colin Voiles, he's what was this? His like third race or something?
His third start. In the race, he had a tough start to the race, and that one was my fault. When I got into Judd early on and got myself into his left rear fender. Some would say that I legged it when I got into him off 2 and spun myself down, and then I think it was actually going into 1. Either way, I just got in a little hot. I got into the back of Judd, spun myself. I thought everybody passed, and then started to back up the track to try and straighten myself out, and just absolutely just clipped Colin's car and sent him spinning. So I was quite apologetic after the race for that. Dumb mistake by me on that. And that wasn't the only time that I did that during the race. I kind of backed into Roten as well when I got turned under caution. So, whoops. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, and on the topic of podcast hosts making mistakes, I had a similar thing late in the race with Dylan. I was going into turn 3 and completely lost focus and just totally slammed on the brakes and locked him up and put Dylan in the wall. But he ended up coming back to third, and he and I joked about it after. I was like, dude, I'm sorry again. Like, that sucked. That was completely my fault. And he's like, well, dude, I made it back up to third, so just keep doing that. And it reminded me last season at Homestead, coming out of 4, he was on the inside, kind of like right rear to left rear. There was a car in front of me, and I moved to the left to get around that car, and I didn't know he was there. And it completely spun him out. Like, I was fine. It totally spun him out. And then he ends up coming back and winning that race. So maybe I just need to intentionally wreck or lose focus and kill Dylan for him to get good results. I mean,
that's if whatever works, right? Now
yeah.
let's we do have Daniel back in the holding lines here. Let's see if we can bring him in and get this phone line to work this time. See if he can hear us and see if we can get some of his thoughts.
I would like to hear his thoughts on what happened there with old ZR.
Absolutely. Let's see. Oh, shit. Whoops.
And this is good timing because I've just finished my first beer, so we'll crack
Perfect. I'm
one
very
open for
close to
DT.
finishing mine as well here. Let's see. Dan from Wisconsin, you're on the air. Can you hear us this time?
Hello.
Ah, there he is.
Oh, hello.
There we go. Now we're good.
So Dan,
Dan,
you had you didn't have a very eventful race, right? What was a couple things you wanted to bring up? I know much
Pretty
Oh,
boring.
a whole lot
I had
didn't
a
happen.
very, very, very boring race, guys. Nothing happened for me.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people were driving over their heads. Some people more than others. I won't name names, although you guys may have already covered that. But
No, Joe took care of it for you. Don't worry.
oh, he did. Okay, yeah, no,
Yeah.
everyone was driving over their heads. People were running out of talent. I mean, people can say I was a has-been, but at least I had a time where I was someone.
Yes.
Whereas
Or
some
like
of these
I
people
had
never had a
been.
time where they were him.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, referring to himself as the him. I love it. Wow.
yeah.
Spicy.
I mean, in the early days of CRS, when finishing second place was the only other option, I did it once.
Right.
I could do it again if I put my mind to it. But, you know.
Hey, now, I did that a lot. Okay. Settle down.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dan, we did go over probably the most obvious incident between y'all. We pulled it up on the screen. I was able to find it in the replay, but it sounded like there were maybe some other incidents there that I couldn't look through the entire race to find them. But do you have any comments or hot takes or cold takes on that?
I think, one case was pretty blatant. I mean, Roten straight up turned me, like, turned right and spun me around in the wall, and that basically ruined my race. I couldn't come back from
I
that.
believe that was the one we saw.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
one we highlighted. Yep. Some of
There
the
was
other
other
ones
one.
seemed a little racy, a little bit just kind of tight racing, hard racing. What do
Yeah,
you
I
think?
mean, there's definitely some tight racing. I mean, I feel like for the most part, I'm a pretty fair driver.
I'd say so.
Maybe a little more aggressive on defense this time around, but I think just kind of everybody was feeling the urgency with all the cautions we had.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, there was the last case I think where the judge was going to try and call for a yellow, but I was like, no, just keep going because we had like 4 in a row up to that point without a green flag of racing. That one Roten just piled into me. I don't even think he hit the brakes. He just kind of arc braked it. But
Wow.
yeah, that's all I'm gonna say on that. You guys can look back at it, interpret the facts, but that's my side of the story, and that's what I'm sticking with.
I like it. All right. Well, it makes me wish Roten was available. I'd love to hear the other side here. We can tell you from our quiet channel. It was a little spicy in there too. So it's short track racing, man. Tuesday nights can be a little hectic, and we saw that last night.
Yeah. I mean, close quarters racing. I mean, I feel like that's always kind of been a characteristic over the years too.
Absolutely.
Glad to know we've kept that identity in the series.
Why would we figure it out and have short track races without 70 cautions?
Yeah, and I mean the race last night. I mean, it was so with all the cautions. I mean, we ended up with 18 cautions for 54 laps. That's a third of the race under caution. I mean, there was a lot of cautions, and pair that with a racetrack that is so track position dependent. I mean, you never know when the next caution is going to come out. You really have to get everything you can get. So,
Absolutely.
with that, you're going to have some run-ins for sure.
Yep. Dan, on a lighter note, I know that you're here. I believe I had asked you about Chicago. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to make it to that. Do you have any other races that you're targeting coming out for the rest of the season? Can we expect to see you back?
Maybe for a couple races. Watkins Glen looks pretty exciting. Kind of looking toward maybe more of the intermediate tracks, maybe a Homestead.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll see. I mean, I think I'll be avoiding any other short tracks we have on the schedule, but yeah, looking at it, probably Homestead, Watkins Glen, definitely Charlotte if I can make that one.
Absolutely.
Maybe throw in Talladega too.
Wow. All right. Well, we look forward to it. We're happy to have you back whenever we can, and we're thankful for a spicy race and some good sound bits from the Wisconsin boys, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Well. I mean, I'm telling you, I really wish Roten was available because, man, he's getting a lot of flack right now. I mean, geez, I mean, I understand some of it can be a little warranted with some frustration and whatnot, but man, just took a beating right there from the state of Wisconsin.
A little bit, yeah. And I mean, it's obviously everybody's going to have a lot of opinions on how everybody else drove, right? But I think most people would agree everybody was driving like maniacs last night. I mean, because of what I said, like it's so track position dependent, and you gotta get everything you can get.
Yeah, and one thing you and I talked about in the middle of the race was just how difficult it was to pass here. I mean, we know obviously when we watch it on TV, guys talk about it. It's a tough track to make passes at, but it really proved tough last night. So that I think even added a little more fuel to the fire of guys saying, "Man, I got to get by this guy." I know for a little bit of the race, I had a part where I think Jack was on older tires or something to that note, and I was just on the outside and I couldn't get around him. I lost like 2 or 3 spots just because I was just stuck behind him, and I didn't want to send it in there and do something stupid to try and pass him, and was just kind of stuck. And like I feel like that kind of happened to some other people throughout the race, and it definitely brought some aggression, and sometimes that aggression crossed the line.
Yeah, I think a lot of times it crossed the line. I think, but
Yeah,
with
yeah,
18 cautions,
18
I didn't even
times,
realize.
yeah.
I didn't even realize there was that many cautions. I mean,
honestly, I thought it was more, so I was happy to hear
yeah,
18. I thought it was a lot more than that. So yeah, that's still a lot. I think between this and Martinsville, we've had a shit ton of race cautions, and if you take these 2 races out of it, we got not a ton of cautions, just kind of your run of the mill normal cautions that just kind of come with more drivers being in the race, right? So it's just something we got to work on. I think our next short track is let me see here.
Oh yeah, it's a completely calm track that everybody's going to behave on. It's
Oh,
Bristol.
you're right. Yeah, and it's in 2 weeks. Yeah, or I guess 3 weeks. April 1st, April Fools.
Yeah, and
hopefully we don't drive like a bunch of fools.
That's also the last race before the All-Star race, so
yes,
that could
All-Star
invite
race,
a bit more aggression.
All-Star race location format. I'm hoping to be released before we get to Chicago. I can go ahead and just throw that news on here. So at some point in the week, probably Monday, because I'm going to be in Canada for the next 4 days. So
in Canada,
yes, yeah, exciting work trip. Yes, so keep an eye out for that. I have something pretty cool cooked up. I just got to run it by the mods and make sure everybody else is on board with it and get some opinions as far as what they think there. But yeah, could be a little interesting. And
I'm gonna play podcast host here real quick and ask the difficult question. Can you give us anything to hang our hats on for this? Obviously, you're not going to announce the whole thing right here, but
absolutely, yeah. I think the biggest.
Are we looking at an Atlanta? Or are we looking at a dirt track? I mean,
I will just say we've been there before in a regular season race in the past, and we may have gone there already by the time that we arrive at All-Star Week.
Oh, okay.
So just leave it. We'll just leave it at that. Like I said, nothing's 100%. I'm going to suggest it to the rest of the admin team. But what I have in mind is along the lines of kind of what I just said there. So just a little teaser, right? Yeah, a little teaser.
All right. So I think we've covered all the beef at this point.
There's I can't think of any others really. I don't think there was none at least as prominent as the one we just covered.
Yeah. Do we want to maybe highlight some good performances from last night? I got the race results up here.
Absolutely.
Obviously, Jack Drucker, his 3rd win of the season. He is
I'm sick of this guy already. Jeez.
Yeah, that's he's won half the CRS races he's entered in. So definitely making a stamp on this season.
We only have 3 winners in this league so far, and it's been Travis, Jack and Dylan. So, a familiar name on the winners table, and Brandon, if we consider the Clash. Sorry, Brandon. But we have
Sure.
some
points winners.
Some one of our more familiar names in the winner bracket in the standings we have not seen yet, although he had a pretty good chance last night. Owen Mays, making a big charge up the points though. He's had a couple good runs, and I expect we'll probably be able to see his name up there somewhat soon. But how soon do you think?
Well, we're gonna get into the points in a minute, and with the drop weeks and stuff, he's already up there. I mean,
Yeah.
The full season points have been rough because he has had he has had a few stinkers, but like always, kind of the past few seasons, Owen started off slow, and then by the end of it, he's either leading the points or making his way towards the lead. So I mean, last season that was the story. I had a really hot start, and then the second half of the season it was pretty much all Owen, and then I got a couple wins at the end to bring it home. But he definitely came on strong last season. Last night, another good showing there from Donnelly on the short track / speedway kind of hybrid
so
tracks. He's really good at those.
Yeah, he's great. He's been great at Phoenix in the past, and he did it again last night. He led 7 laps. He ran pretty quick. He led the race in total passes, always a stat that I like to go to. And again he rebounded from an incident with myself and him where we're just going into 3. I think it was one of those kind of like you had talked about where kind of the opposite of what you had talked about with Brandon, where I kind of assumed that he was going to run a little lower. He ran higher than I thought on entry, and I just kind of got into him and gave him the old left rear smack that whipped him around. So to rebound from that and get back to 4th place, pretty impressive night for him there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I don't really know if we have anything. I think we may have covered everything from Phoenix. We want to move on to Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. Next week is gonna be interesting. I'm personally I'm looking forward to it. The 4-car could have been on. I believe it was one of the days over the weekend. There was a rumor that the 4-car was already roaming the streets of Chicago. I know that the 10-car or the 1-car has already been roaming the streets of Chicago.
Definitely.
So
the 1-car's been there for a few months. Let me tell you.
Yeah, practice has been in order. And so since we both have had some time on the track, talk about kind of what you expect and what you've learned from your time in practicing in Chicago, and kind of tell everybody what they can expect. I'll kind of chime in with some of the notes that I've taken from that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Xfinity car was there on officials a few months ago, and I ran a bunch of races there, not even knowing this was. I think this was in the off season between the last season and this one. So I didn't even know that we were going there. I didn't even know we were running the Xfinity car, but I just enjoyed that track so much with the Xfinity car. I mean, it's tough to pass if you've got a guy in front of you who you're a little bit faster than, but maybe not like half a second faster over a lap. It's going to be tough to pass because it's a lot of 90-degree corners, but if you can just stay right on his ass, force him into a mistake, get him up against the wall, then that's where a lot of your passes are going to be made. Obviously, the walls are super close. I want to say it's turn 7 after you go down the long back stretch. You have the left-hander, you go over the bridge, and that tight right-hander. I do think we could see some issues with people trying to dive it down the inside, because that's really
tight corner, man.
And especially you go into that carousel, that's a 1-lane section. Maybe it might be like a half lane. I mean, you really need all the space. So I think we could see some incidents there. The biggest thing, and we'll talk about this caution procedure in a little bit, which does kind of save what I'm about to say to a certain extent. But the biggest thing, man, you got to keep the rear tires on that thing. Like,
oh my god,
and that goes for every road course that we do in these stock cars. You really got to keep the rear tires on it, but especially on Chicago, you're running on city streets. It's
really
very rough, very bumpy. Yeah. So the guy who keeps his rear tires on the best is most likely going to have success there. But yeah, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and for me, like a couple things for sure. The when you talk about the rears, one of the biggest things too that's kind of important to note is that um, it's really hard to get them cooled off if you overheat them because you don't have a lot of time to do so. Sometimes like a Watkins Glen or something, if you kind of catch yourself realizing that you may have overheated the rear tires and they're kind of not behaving how you like, you have a little time and you can kind of go a little easy to get them cooled off at least back to a point where you feel comfortable. I don't think you have that at Chicago really. You don't have a lot of time. You're up on the wheel almost all the time, and I think that's an extra level of stress to saving those rear tires, which is just you don't have a lot of time to cool them down if you do overheat them. So it's really, I think, going to be important. A couple other things I noticed, you already touched on it. It's a tight track. There's there's no room for error there. Any little bit of a mistake, we're talking about hitting the wall, sliding into some tires. We saw it in the real races when they go here, and it's very true on iRacing. And then the bumps is another thing that I noticed. It's a very, very bumpy track. There's a lot of times where you're under acceleration and you want to put the throttle all the way down, and you're hearing RPMs jump because the car's bouncing all over the place. And then when you hear those RPMs jumping, you're worried. Am I burning the tires up? Am I cooking them up a little bit? What am I doing to my car by doing this? So a lot of easy rolling into the throttle from what I learned, and a lot of easy on the brakes because those bumps can also kind of kick your ass when you're under braking if you're not careful, right? So being aggressive on the brakes is not going to pay off huge here, I think, for people. I think it's going to be really important to pay attention to your braking lines and your braking spots and respect those. And then last but not least, the passing. I think you nailed it on the head there. It's going to be tough. I think this is one of those places where even if you can't stay on someone and force them into a mistake, you really got to think far ahead about where am I going to make a move on this guy, right? Where will I have the opportunity to make a move and not one wreck us both, or two put myself in a position where I could lose to the person behind me, right? Some of the corners are really tight, really tough to pass in. You said that the down over the bridge, I believe there's Xfinity signs. I'm going to call it the Xfinity corner because I
right,
forgot the corner numbers. I believe that is going to be one place where we might see some stuff happen. I also think on the other side of that carousel, the little McDonald's corner,
that's
is
the
going to
mistake
be
generator.
yeah, it's going to be interesting. And then I think the most important when it comes to people trying to make moves and possibly getting into some trouble is going to be, I think it's turn 3 after that, or turn 4 after
3
that
and
long
4,
straightaway early in the race. Then there's that slight little kind of kink. You can carry more speed through there than you think when you first get in there. And then there's that hard right hander after that. I think some people are going to be sending it into that first bit of the corner a lot harder than others and trying to take advantage of opportunities by doing that. But then right into a hard right hander into the long straight. So I think it's going to be really interesting. It's this in the same way as when NASCAR came here. We've never done anything like this in CRS. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And it'll be kind of cool to see how everybody learns the track. Hopefully some people are practicing off the record. We no longer do practices. I do expect to maybe put a practice up Monday or something like that. Yep, just to give people that time and that opportunity to practice. I think that'd be good for everybody.
Anytime we've done a new road course, that's been kind of common for y'all to put those up.
Exactly. I like to kind of keep that consistent.
Yeah, this is definitely the hardest road course we've ever been to, and I think that's probably just because of the walls. Because you look at the layout, and the layout doesn't look particularly menacing, but yeah, I mean,
but boy, is it menacing.
It is. Let's go ahead and get into this this new procedure we're doing on the road course. I covered it a little bit on, I guess that was like episode 1. But now we have an admin here to kind of clear up any questions.
Yeah, fire away. I'll answer whatever I can.
So it is a 45-minute race, right? But in the description we have it says like time will be added to the race to accommodate the caution period. So what actually is going to be the time of the race? Is it like 50 minutes and then 45 minutes of racing, or how do we know about how long the caution is going to last? Or
yeah, so my plan and my testing and the amount of time that it takes, I think it was right, or it was very close to the number that I wound up landing on. But in the amount of time that it takes for if a caution were to come out, I chose probably the farthest spot from the finish line that I could to exaggerate this, basically to prepare for the worst, which is that caution coming out at this furthest point of the track, which I think was like turn 4 all the way at the end of that straightaway.
Yeah.
And in the amount of time it took to get back around to catch where I thought the pace car would be, I didn't do it like an AI race to simulate it, just because the AI sometimes they really putz along and take their time when it comes to catching the pace car, and I don't think we will do that. So in the amount of time it took me to get around, catch that, go around a lap, pit, regroup, one to go, it equaled out close enough to about 10 minutes. So I've added 10 minutes onto the race. So technically total time 55, and the goal is to keep the advertised racing time, quote unquote, green flag time, should I say, as close to 45 as possible. Might be a little more, depending on how the cautions fall, because also if there's a lapped car in there, if someone had been lapped already before this caution comes out or something like that, there's always a little bit of additional time added onto that as well to get the lucky dog. So I figured I would just max it out. 10 minutes. The goal again is to keep 45 minutes of green flag time as promised. So the actual session itself will be 55 minutes, and race time will be just a little over 45, right around
45.
that same thing. Yeah, exactly. And kind of that unknown is kind of interesting, where I don't really know how the fuel strategy is going to work or how long fuel will last time wise. I considered just pulling the plug and making it a laps race, but the timing thing is pretty cool. I think we had a lot of people like that in the past, and this all really stemmed from in the off season. We do our surveys, and someone has suggested it. Two people actually suggested it in two kind of different ways of getting some sort of a caution involved in a road course race to kind of just really bring the field back together. And the intention of it was, we've had some low car counts in road courses in the past.
Yeah.
Is there something that we can do that can bring this back up, that can keep the race exciting, that can get people excited to go race road courses? Because I think some people just kind of don't want to, especially just 45 minutes straight. You got to be on your best, especially at a place like Chicago. Might turn some people away. Whereas now we throw this caution in the mix, right? Now we have a restart, right? Something we've never really done in CRS, because we've always had the rule where a track blocker that takes out, like 80% of the field or something like that would be a caution, and we've never had to use it. So the fact that this will be the first full course caution in a road course I think that we've ever done. Hopefully it keeps some people interested and makes some people want to come out and see if they can run a little better than maybe they would expect to have done so if it was just a straight 45.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll definitely make the race more exciting. You did answer one of my next questions, which was, is it going to be an actual iRacing yellow, or is it going to be just like we all just congregate on our own? But I think with the actual pace car going out, that'll be nice and make it all neat and tidy.
Yeah, and to go like real quick, just to go into more detail of that, what happens is what we have is Aaron at Race Control has a program, and within that program, he's able to set it so that at a point in the race, the caution will just come out randomly. No one will know when it's going to happen.
Right.
I don't even know if Aaron's going to know when it happens, but if he does, obviously he's not going to tell anybody, and it will just happen. We did set it up. I believe it was the first 10 minutes, the last 10 minutes, it will not happen of the race. So that was another reason for me extending that, because just to kind of open that window up a little more so that it wasn't just like at some point in this like little 20-minute window. At least it's a little more of a wider window now when that caution will come out. But definitely we didn't want something happening in the beginning of the race to throw things off when we just had a start and people are just kind of getting settled in, and definitely didn't want something happening too late in the race that was going to have too much of effect on the outcome. Merely just a goal of, let's bring the field back together, have a restart, give some people who maybe had a tough first stint of the race an opportunity to regroup, maybe they learned something. Maybe they can go out and perform better in that second part of the race and make up some spots that they probably wouldn't have had the chance to if they hadn't had that caution. So it's exciting. It's different. It's going to be interesting to see how it works, and hopefully it works out well and it's received well by everybody.
Yeah, I think it will be. The strategy, right? I mean, this I think, in my opinion, just because I'm typically towards the front in these road courses, I think this definitely it takes out the green flag pit stops in my eyes, because we know the caution's going to come out before the 35th minute of the race, and I think these cars can go about 37 to 40 minutes. Like 35 should be pretty okay. So the winning strategy, I believe, would be to just stay out and stay out and wait for the caution. Yeah. But if that caution comes out really, really late, like say we haven't had a caution and it's the 33rd minute of the race and you're pulling up on pit road, you might dive down pit road knowing the caution is going to come out in the next 2 minutes. And if you can gain a little bit on your rivals, restart in front of them, that'll definitely be interesting.
Exactly, especially in a place like this where we just went over how tough it's going to be to pass. It could be really important to try and jump that strategy, or even like you said before that, if you have confidence and think that it's not going to come out early on, do you run the risk of taking the stop? You're not going to lose a lap unless you're really far back, right?
Yeah,
So do
no,
you
you
run the
wouldn't lose a
risk of
lap.
taking the stop and hoping that when that caution does come out, it's not too far into your run, and now you have a little bit of an advantage because you don't have to stop. Everybody else does. You're still on decent tires, and you're fueled up to the end of the race. Now all of a sudden, we could have people out front who aren't necessarily used to being there and seeing how they can handle that, how tough it'll be for other people to get by. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see what people do strategy wise.
That would be interesting if you had a guy like maybe in the 4th to 7th place range who has some speed, maybe not winning speed, but good enough
Yeah, and
speed
they're
to
like a
stay
little
close.
bit back. They got a little bit of a gap to the guys in front of them. They're not like crazy fast, but they're like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna take this risk, and
you
then
might pit like 15 minutes into the race, and then you don't have to stop again for fuel. So
exactly.
if you know you're not going to win, but you're running 8th, like, could you pit early, hope to catch the caution at the right time, and then maybe we can turn that 8th place into a 4th place? It definitely
Exactly.
presents some opportunities.
Get up there and just be a problem, and kind of be not like not like a problem like you're gonna wreck everybody, but like a problem is like people are gonna have a hard time passing you, and you might be able to hang on to positions much much more than you were able to do so if you were just straight up out there. And it's gonna be pretty cool. I think it'll be interesting to see the restart, because we've only ever done race starts, never done a restart.
Yeah.
How aggressive are people going to be? Hopefully not too much. We've been pretty tame through our first corners in our history on the road courses. For a bunch of people that don't know how to drive a short track, it's pretty amazing that we know how to get through turn 1 at Watkins Glen pretty damn well. So that's that'll be interesting to keep an eye on going forward, and seeing how that goes. Things are going to get exciting next week, and not only the track will be exciting and new, so is this format. So it's going to be just a whole new week of new stuff, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. Do we have anything? I think those were really my main questions on the format. Do you want to clarify anything else? I think we may have covered it all.
Yeah, I think we've really covered it all. I think the last thing before we move on here would be just kind of our last little bit we always end on, which is just kind of looking at the season standings, where they are, our winners and losers, and what we think going forward. Leaderboard we could see. It would be interesting.
Yeah, real quick, let's just go over the previous road course stats. Here I will. I can share my screen here for the YouTube people.
Yeah, I have the ones up. Do you have just Xfinity, or do you have all?
I have all road course period. So
nice, perfect.
Obviously, me, Owen, and Jared have probably had the most success as far as wins go. And we can kind of handicap what we think is going to happen this next week because we obviously haven't been to Chicago, so we can't look at that. But I think up at the front, I know Brandon says he really likes road courses. He missed the 2 road course races last season, so I'm interested to see how he does. And then you'll probably have me and Owen up there. Jared, if he shows up, he's always very strong at these. So,
absolutely.
Just going down the list again, Dylan has won a race at I believe it was Watkins Glen. I was not at that one, but
race, I believe he's figured out his road course racing has kind of come a long way. He's really figured out that over the years, and has come a long way on that, on something that's not easy. So it's pretty cool to see the success he's had on the road courses up there.
And then like maybe top 5 contenders, we've got. I would put you in that category. I'd put Austin. He's improved a lot on these.
Average finish of 7.8 in his road course racing history.
Yeah.
So, and it seems like he always finishes better than he starts. So
definitely,
that's a positive stat to have there.
And then
going into that.
Looking down here, I know Dan said he might show up. Through his 11 starts, his average finish is 4.2. So he will probably be right up there as well.
Yeah, and then just a couple other usual suspects of I'm looking at. I basically just went ahead and sorted by most top 5s in road courses. You got Donnelly up there. We know he's a good road course
Donnelly
racer.
is very good, yeah.
And then Judd as well is a good road course racer. He's very good. I'd say he's a very good road course manager, should I say, where he doesn't do anything crazy. He doesn't have any like crazy fast races, but he keeps the car clean and he gets a finish. And he's had 11 top 5s in 16 starts on the road courses. So that's
and a win. To that point
yeah,
about
right.
managing it, I believe that win was, and I could be wrong about the season, but I believe it was ARCA at Watkins Glen, and it was a timed race, and he just never pit. And
that's right.
And he ends up winning because he was able to save the fuel and the fuel tank could go there. And that I was in that race, and that completely caught me off guard. Like, I had no idea you could make it that far. So Judd is always, everywhere we go, even the ovals, he's always he's willing to take that risk and go for the alternate strategy, and it pays off sometimes. So especially with this format, like we just talked about, could we see him pit early and try to take advantage of that yellow?
And it helps when you're not an overly aggressive driver and make smart decisions. That's a big thing I think for Judd that really helps him on these road courses too, is that we make mistakes. So if he goes out and doesn't make mistakes and keeps the car clean, he winds up finishing well most of the time, right? So that should be interesting to see. I always go straight to the total passes stat for some reason. I love it. Austin and I tied at 50.
Oh wow!
For most passes on the road courses. So, and myself, I have 36 quality passes. So as I can attest to myself, what that is making a dumb mistake early, and then having decent speed and having to crawl back through the field. So my goal personally, at the hardest track we've ever gone to, is to not make a mistake early, to just keep myself there. I've had incidents where I let someone in my rearview mirror get me frazzled, and then I make a mistake. I've overdriven the car, right? So that's my personal goal going forward, is I want to just try to not make that one mistake that I always seem to make, and then have to crawl my way back through the field and fight for a top 5, just hanging on barely. So again, but someone like me, let's say it happens, right? This caution is huge for someone like me, where I might make the early mistake and I might crawl back up a little bit. And now it's like, okay, this caution is out. I've got a chance to go try and better myself than where I was and hopefully not make that mistake again. So very, 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 very interested in how this is all going to work out. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and another thing with the caution, knowing that you're going to be able to make your way back up, with the field closing, is the fastest lap. I mean, somebody could pit early knowing that you're gonna be able to come back, and you might even be able to pit twice. I don't really understand the delta between how long it takes to get down pit road and how long the lap is, but you're gonna get multiple chances at trying to get that fastest lap and get the bonus point. So,
yeah,
that is another thing. I will say, the key to these road course races is to not drive fast. Like,
yep.
driving slow will
Slow is
make you go
fast.
faster on these, because these cars, if you brake a little bit too late, you lock up the rears, you're done. Like, it's gonna spin out, especially with the walls. You're gonna be in a
Oh
wall.
God.
At
Yep.
at Watkins Glen, you got a lot of runoff. You can spin out and keep going, but the
And
margin
you
for
can
error
take
here is
corners
very
wide
low.
that you overshoot, right?
Yeah.
If you happen to screw up the braking and take a little corner wide, you can overshoot a little bit out of the carousel or something like that, right? Or the last two corners. That second to last corner, you go in a little too hard there. You got all that runoff on the right, turn
Yeah.
one, right? There is none of that here.
Right.
There's tires and wall.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun to see again. Our guys who are good at somewhere like a Watkins Glen, who know they kind of have that room for error.
Mm-hmm.
How are they gonna drive here? Right? Are they going to be able to kind of still be as fast? Are they going to be a little more hesitant and possibly a little slower because they know that margin for error is much slimmer than it is at another track where we go to?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be fun to see who adapts to the track and who is able to find speed and run well.
Yeah.
I think it's we have our usual suspects looking at the stats, but we also have no idea what's ahead of us. So
Definitely.
it'll be a lot of fun.
One more thing on the road courses before we switch over to the points just popped in my head. The qualifying is going to be a little bit different. So, from what I understand, you're not allowed to quick reset in the time qualifying anymore now. So,
thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Yes, that is another thing that has been changed this year. This was another recommendation, one that I fell in love with almost right away. So
I think that might have been me.
if I go out and I'm halfway through my lap that I'm attempting to lay down a qualifying lap for, and I stuff it in the wall a little bit and screw up my lap, no longer can I just park, tow, get back out and go for it again, right?
Yeah.
You have to limp that thing around, bring it back to the pits. Once you're in the pits, since in qualifying, fast repairs really don't.
You don't have a fast repair.
Yeah, so
that's
once
another
you get
thing.
into your stall,
if you bin it, you're done.
Yeah, exactly. So once you park it in your stall, that's it. Once you come to the pits and you park in your stall, if you're damaged, now there is if you go out and run a decent lap, I think you have more, and you come in and you just take a normal 4-tire stop and go back out, completely legal, right? It's trying to just make it as realistic as possible. If Lewis Hamilton screws up a qualifying lap, he can't just pull into the gravel and immediately appear in the pits and then try again, right? So I think that's the realism kind of that we were chasing after is forcing people to make those laps count, right? Before, with the ability to just tow and go back and open qualifying, it kind of just felt like an extension of practice, right? That was the biggest reason why I was super on board with this decision, because it just kind of was like an extension of practice. Oh, I screwed up, whatever. Also, we don't run the risk of people parking on the track. Now obviously you may have
with the walls,
yeah, it's a tight track. You don't want people just pulling off and parking and then you come around a blind corner and someone's sitting there waiting to get out, and they don't hold the button in time, and then you just plow right into them, right? So you may have a shitter on the track that you got to work your way around, but that's kind of just a part of it, right? That's just a part of qualifying. If you kind of get hosed by that, well, you got to just try and go again, right? So that's going to be pretty cool. I kind of almost forgot that until you mentioned it, so I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah. And so in my testing that I did over 10 minutes, I think the ideal strategy, if you can stay clean, is you'll be able to go for an out lap and maybe do 2 hot laps, then come in for your in lap and get out and do 1 more hot lap. I think you can barely make it in 10 minutes with that, depending on how quick your out and in laps are. So that'll definitely be interesting.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting at a tight track like this too. I think you're going to see a lot of guys kind of doing the old F1 move of like, I'm going to hang back and go really slow in this second to last corner and prepare myself, let the guy in front of me get plenty ahead and give myself some open track there's no benefit of a tow here in this car, right? Like, there's none of that. So, it's just really going to be about like, can I find some clean track, and can I lay down a good lap, and hopefully not have any interference. It'll be interesting, and I think too that it could prove a little hectic for some people in qualifying who are normally pretty good at qualifying, because they have that ability to just kind of pop back in the pits, push it really hard, make a mistake, pop back in the pits, just go try again, push a little less harder, right? No, you got to make it count. So it's going to be pretty cool to see how that all works out as well, and if our usual suspects are able to stay up there where they usually are.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we've spent a lot of time on Phoenix and Chicago. Let's wrap it up here with the point standings. I've got the drop week standings here on the shared deal. So, with the drop weeks, Drucker's still in the lead by 10 points over Dylan Hoffman. So it's 3 wins to 2, but I think Dylan's Las Vegas was a second place, so he's still right up there. And as we said, Owen not having the best full season, but it's the drop weeks that count, and he's up to 3rd at this point.
Very nice. Yeah, he's up to 5th in our regular season points. So obviously on Sim Racer Hub, the drop weeks will not kick in until later in the season. You do a great job of keeping track of that so that people can kind of see where they stand with those included. But obviously there's, the stipulations where you might be currently dropping a pretty high point race.
Yeah.
And you might, like for me personally, I know I'm dropping one of my 14-point races that I have. I have a 2, a 4, and a 14. So I'm hoping, that I can eventually replace that 14 and make that not a big number dropped out. Maybe, obviously I don't want a bad finish there, but like, I'm missing out on a lot of points right there because of that. So as the season goes on, it'd be really cool for us to recap that each week and take a look at that. On Sim Racer, we had our biggest winners and losers of the week. Owen jumps 4 spots in the points with his solid second place run. A huge night for him. He is currently tied for 5th with Dylan Perry in the points. Dylan's still hanging on up there in the points. He had a good start to the season. I think he finished like top 5 at Daytona, but
he was Dylan Hoffman.
No, Perry.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yeah. So he was able to have a good finish there and really just kind of parlay that right into the rest of the season. He still held on there. He gained a spot over BC last night, so interesting stuff on the points. Again, tied for points with Owen, 84 off the lead currently. Our other biggest plus of the night, Christian jumps up 3 spots with a good finish for him. 6th place, I believe. He kind of got off to a rough start this season, but managed to get a good finish there to get himself up within 6 points of 9th place. So that 9th through 12th is a tight little stretch right there. If we even go all the way down to 14th, it's 10 points between 9th and 14th. So it's tight right in there. It's also tight right around the 4th to 7th range. And then I'm the only guy in the 70s. I'm just kind of alone by myself right now figuring it out. But, it's tight pretty much everywhere. Jack has a nice comfy lead, but we'll see what happens going forward. I know that he was a little iffy when we talked to him last week about Chicago, saying it was kind of just like a survival race.
Yeah, so in that, with the looking at the drop weeks, we just highlighted how good DH is on these. So maybe, with the drop weeks, we could have DH take the lead depending on how Jack does. I mean, I don't want to manifest some bad luck, but yeah, with how good Dylan is there, I mean, it could be a good result.
Yeah, now I can give you some insider info that Dylan has never set foot on this track ever in his life. That could be interesting, right? And the only road courses he has raced on are your proper road courses with the runoff, with plenty of that stuff. Yeah. So he's kind of one of the guys that I kind of look at as like, okay, you got the speed. Can it transfer to a tight track like this where the margin for error is, is not, it's not as much as it is anywhere else. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There is no margin for error. So
yeah, and talking about the gaps between everybody and how close it is on the drop week side, 4th through 16th, it's single digits between everybody. So
oh wow, I see that.
Yeah, it's very tight, and I feel like probably by the time we get to the All-Star break, it'll be a little bit more realistic because people have had, that's probably where your season like settles in.
Yeah.
but it's good to see that now.
Yeah, it'll be kind of cool heading into All-Star Week. We'll be able to kind of recap the first half of the season and look at that really more in detail and see what we think, going forward, what we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, so I think we pretty much covered CRS at this point. I tell you what,
like we said, just a little something to talk about.
Yeah, it's been a short episode. We've been on for 74 minutes at this point, so probably a good time to wrap that up. I tell you what, I'm about 2 beers in, and I'm ready for a bathroom break here before we can start talking about the Cup Series. What do you think?
Yeah, a little commercial. We'll run our ads for beer and nicotine pouches.
Sounds good. All right, so on to NASCAR. That was a good CRS talk. We cleared up some stuff.
That was one of the better ever, I think. We
got
it's
a high bar.
Shit thrown at Roten. Yeah, we got some shit thrown at Roten. I'm sure he'll want to come on in the future and
definitely
go over that. But wow, what a week in CRS. If there's one thing, I mean, the short tracks definitely breed some good content for us.
Definitely, and yeah, I didn't really know what to expect when we started this podcast, but I think that's about all I could hope for. So.
Yeah, I know there's only about 6 episodes, but that's, I mean, a top 5 CRS segment of all time right there. I mean,
100%. Yeah, that's going to be hard to top.
Now, hey, speaking of CRS in Phoenix, you know who else was in Phoenix this week?
Yeah, I believe the World Billiards Tour was in Phoenix this weekend.
Yes, exactly. It was intense. That's for sure.
And I know we're not a big billiards pod, but I believe NASCAR was there as well.
I guess we can talk about that.
Yeah, I didn't watch ARCA. I don't really care about that. I don't know if we have anything to touch on that, but
no,
somebody won.
I think it was. I'm with you. I'll say one thing about ARCA that I'll say is cool. they end under green always. That why can't we do that ever? I mean, I know it's chaos to have just a million restarts, but I mean, hey, we've seen enough races end under caution that I'm kind
chaotic
of on board
anyways.
with.
Yeah,
I'm on board with. Let's just finish under green.
I guess the one thing I'll say on ARCA it was the Joe Gibbs 18 that won, and then the 19 won Saturday and the 21 Sunday. But let's I think we go ahead.
Xfinity. No, it was a good race. I'll give you a couple quick highlights from the Xfinity race. Austin Hill drove himself in turn 3 wall, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
On entry, kind of similar to what Noah did at the All-Star race last year in the Cup Series. Very hilarious.
That's right.
Yeah, kind of funny. And his interview afterwards, he was just like, "That's like," he basically, in a polite way, said like, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever done." So, that, and then crazy last restart, good finish, I guess, if you like Joe Gibbs racing. Alex Bowman, being the nice guy he is, leaves a lot of room for Almirola, and Almirola just decides to put him in the wall anyway.
Yeah.
And then finish in first. Kind of like one of the things I found kind of like I was already kind of like meh on that finish.
Yeah.
And I saw an interview with him where they were like, they asked Almirola about wrecking Alex in the last lap, and he was like, I didn't wreck him. He finished in second, didn't he? And it's like, yeah, but you did wreck him. Like you slammed him into the wall. I mean, I didn't see the whole thing, but the clip that I saw of it was basically him. And pardon me if I'm taking this out of context, it was basically him like, yeah, I mean, he came in second, so I didn't wreck him. It's just,
Yeah, and I was watching that race with my brother, and we were sitting there, and Allgaier had dominated the race, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
he loves to just give races away when it matters.
Yeah, and last season it was the same thing. He dominated, and he cut a tire with like 4 to go, and it was a heartbreaker. And then so I'm sitting there with my brother, and my brother loves NASCAR. We do fantasy with our little group, and so he's into it. He likes it. He likes watching it, but he's not he's not in the league. Like he doesn't consume the content every single day. So I like to share my thoughts on the race and stuff. And so I'm telling him there's 10 to go, and I'm like, man, Allgaier dominated this race last year. He's dominated it again today, and it looks like there's not going to be another caution. And so he's finally going to bring this spring Phoenix race home that he's definitely earned the win on last year and this year. and then with 2 to go, I can't remember what the caution was, but it was somebody racing for 68th place or something, and they end up crashing.
Couple of wobblers.
Yeah, a couple of wobblers. Yeah,
Couple of
and
wobblers
so they have the restart, and then he loses the lead immediately, and it's like, oh man, like. What can you do? You go out and you dominate a race. You dominate. How long is that race? 250 laps or something? You dominate
something like that.
You dominate 400 or 500 laps of this race, and you just cannot win it. And then on the restart, it was I don't really know where I fall on the move. I mean, obviously, it's a bummer to see people just run each other into the wall. Like that would have been a good finish had that not happened.
Yeah, you mean like we saw on Sunday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the guy on the inside ended up winning on Sunday, so it's like, do you even need to do that? But I think the fact that it's 2 part-timers, and everybody likes to give Almirola a lot of shit for like being a part-timer, and he couldn't make it in the Cup Series. Like, yeah, that's funny, but
yeah, he did okay
at the end of the day, yeah, he was pretty solid in the Cup Series, but at the end of the day, Almirola and Alex Bowman are there to win the race, and that's really all they care about. And
exactly.
I think they talked about it on DBC. It's like Almirola does not have to care about how Alex Bowman thinks of him. If that's Almirola's got like 10 races this year or something like that. If that's Justin Allgaier on the outside, maybe he doesn't make that move because he's got to race him again. But it's unlikely that I know Bowman's got a few more races, but it's unlikely that those two are going to be in the race together. And it's like you're going for the win, man, and you have to lay your head down on the pillow at the end of the day and be okay with what you do. But if that's how you want to win the race and you really want to win the race that bad, then I guess go ahead. But
go for it. Yeah.
It was an exciting finish. It was an exciting restart. I do think that Bowman like ran into the wall off of 2, and that kind of opened the door for Almirola to get on his inside. So to that point, you could kind of say Bowman like kind of choked a little bit, but also he left room, and it's just a bummer to see. Like
he also made that crazy like 4 wide pass, which was nuts.
Yeah,
like
it's just you wish you could have clean racing, but like we saw in our race, I mean, it's you got to send it in there to pass somebody at that track. So
yep. Now on to Sunday though.
I'm good on Xfinity.
I'm great on it. Speaking of, I am looking forward to Xfinity at Las Vegas. So it's always a good time. On the topic of Phoenix finishes on Sunday, we saw something completely different. We saw 2 teammates racing against each other. Very clean racing on the finish, and I think that was a whole different thing than what we saw on Saturday for sure. What did you think of Sunday?
I thought it was cool. I liked the 2 tire choices. I know some people didn't, I guess, but I liked it. I feel like people think it's a gimmick, and it is a gimmick, but the way people talk about it is kind of similar to like when Bernie Ecclestone wanted to put sprinklers on the F1 track. Like that is a crazy gimmick, and that's how they're talking about the tire choice. And I think I think that's a reach. Like it is a gimmick, but it's the same for everybody. So I don't think it makes it illegitimate.
Yeah.
You saw some cars in the back like throw them on early. Priest put them on early, I think, because they were kind of worried about losing a lap, getting back there in traffic because they didn't qualify very well. So I think that was cool that he was able to change the complexion of his race by going up there. And did he win a stage, or he finished second in the stage or something like that? So that was cool. And then, yeah, I mean, I thought it was the best Phoenix race I've probably ever seen. I mean, that track is so painful to watch sometimes, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I thought I think the stuff around the option tire I thought it was really cool, to be honest. I think it's kind of like something we've never really seen before.
Yeah.
And it did produce what I think was like one of the best Phoenix races I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I know that some people think it's like gimmicky, but I'm kind of on the same line with Jeff Gluck where I'm like, it's not really. Is it really that gimmicky? Because like every other racing series does it.
Yeah.
F1, no one calls it gimmicky when they have different sets of tires. IndyCar, they got different sets of tire, different levels of tire wear and whatnot. So like, I was okay with it, and the fact that it opened up this race to be as exciting as it was, I thought I had a blast watching it. I had a blast watching guys who it's like, oh man, so and so took their option tires like a little early in the race. Like, what are they gonna do? They only got 2 sets. Are they gonna sit on this other one until late in the race and hope to have a chance then? Which no one wound up doing, which I thought was crazy. The fact that we get to like the last restart and the only car that had a set of optional tires was the one that didn't have power steering.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of crazy that everybody used theirs up early, thinking that we wouldn't have some chaos at the end. Because, dude, think of how crazy it would have been if we had like one of those last restarts and someone in like 18th has brand new option tires just ready to go. Like that would have been wild to see what they could do and how far through the field they could charge. Because, dude, Priest charged through the field like crazy early in that run. And then we saw, I believe it was in stage 2 where like Austin Cindric threw him on and he was flying through the field and wound up leading some laps. So personally, I thought it was a great success. I thought it was cool. I don't necessarily think we need them for the championship race.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do wonder and ask the question of if everybody was on those same softs, would it have been exciting? Like, I know everyone's like, oh, you just got to use the soft tire. It's better. It wears more, blah, 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 blah. But would we just see the same old Phoenix if everybody's on the same tire, right?
I think a few of them were saying like we can even go softer. I think that's the answer. Like,
yeah,
if we run just the option tire, I think it probably is maybe still a little bit too hard because, and the reason I say that is because like think about Logano when he went up there, he charged up to the field and then the tire started to wear and he fell back to second. Like, I think the idea is like if you go up there and burn your shit up so bad that you would actually fall to like 13th or something.
Right. We want to see spring Bristol from last year, right? That's what we want, which
Yeah.
which was a total anomaly. And like, I guess it was like a weather related thing and like this and that, but like, it was awesome. Whatever they did, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of when we say soft tires, I think that's the bar of like, that might've been a little extreme, but like we want something in between, the cars on the red tires in this race and what Bristol was. I think if we can find a sweet spot in between that, I think that's really a good place to be as far as that tire wear goes. Because I mean, also it's crazy how those soft tires, or maybe just the tire strategy in general, like changed everything for this next gen car. A car that has traditionally not been great on the short tracks. All of a sudden, it's like, holy cow! I can't take my eyes off this short track race. And of all the short tracks, it's Phoenix, right? Like, so it's like it's crazy that it was able to produce that and to make this car actually look like it was quite racy on these kind of tracks when traditionally it hasn't been. So I really thought great success on the idea of having the strategy. Maybe just have it at a couple places throughout the regular season. That's my thought on it. Is like, if we're gonna do it, let's keep it a regular season thing. Let's not mess with the playoffs just yet when it comes to the tires. Especially with how important it is in cutoff races and whatnot. Like, I don't think we need to throw that in the mix. But like for the regular season, why not, right?
Yeah, and I think the secondary point of this, like, yes, it made it a more exciting race, and that's great. But I think the secondary point of doing this was to get a proper test session with 40 cars in a race environment to test that soft tire. And that's what I think.
I'm okay with, right?
That's what I think was so good about this is it gave Goodyear and NASCAR a look into, oh yeah, we actually can go softer because in a race situation, these guys are pushing it to the limit, and I don't think we had any like tire failures. So
no, and I think the issue, like, I know Bubba blew a tire, but I think it was brake related.
That was brake, yeah.
And then
he busted his brakes.
Any other issues that we have are kind of like mechanical. I know that both 2311 cars had some very unconventional Toyota mechanical failures.
Yeah.
And I think, didn't Ty Gibbs have something happen to him too? I think he was maybe a tire, but it might have been the same thing as Bubba, where it was a brake.
I think they were both brakes.
Yeah. And like Bubba said, he had no warning. He just was like, I put my foot on the brake on one corner, it felt a little different. I turned on the brake fans, and then like the next time around, the brakes just gave out, and then he took a hard lick into the wall.
Yeah.
And you know, that's someone who likes Bubba. That's just Bubba luck right there, just running a good race. He was in like 8th place or something like that. Had a good day going, and boom, brakes are gone, and now he's smacked in the outside wall and finishes like 30 seconds. So, like that's tough.
It's
but
classic. Yeah.
you know,
Unfortunately, it's classic.
It's just the Bubba luck, man. He's got some bad luck sometimes in this shit.
Yeah.
But it was a success all around, I think.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. Just going down the list here on our notes. What the Catherine Legg situation? I know there was
Hot
a lot of
topic of the week on every
yeah.
other podcast. Jeez.
I mean, and the problem is, it's not a knock on her. Like,
yeah,
she obviously has ran the Indy 500 many times. She's got a lot of race car driving experience, but the thing that I heard, that I agreed most with is just they just put her in such a bad position. Like, very few people, even with her resume, are going to succeed in that situation.
Right, and like the thing I don't understand about it is like we couldn't find, if we're gonna let her drive, like it's fine. Like I get it. Like I want to see people from other series come race in the Cup Series. That's awesome. We love it, right? But like just to pick Phoenix of all tracks,
right?
Like one, that's kind of weird to me too. And then she's in just a total shitter.
Attractive.
I mean, yeah, dude, just an absolute just garbage pail of a car.
Yeah.
And like the fact that like I think she's 2/10 off Cody Ware in qualifying, like I think that right there was what told me where I'm like, okay, like that's crazy. That car is terrible. She's never done this before, and she's 2/10 off Cody Ware. Like that's kind of, it's a little impressive, right? And so, I don't think I feel like if we put BJ McLeod in that car, we're not going to see a much better result than what we saw, right? Of course, the internet wants to rip away at the early spin, which no one gives credit for keeping it out of both walls, which is I'll be the one to give that credit. And to that thing, I mean, that thing was snapping like crazy. Kept it off the outside, spun it, kept it off the inside. I mean, that right there, I'll give her flowers on that. Like that's crazy. That's to not hit anything at that tight track. We just raced there last night. We know how tight that backstretch is, right? And how hard it can be to save it off of 2 and not do that and not stuff it in the wall. So I'll give the flowers where they belong. But the big discussion of the week, a lot of people talking about the process of making sure drivers are ready, and like I get it and whatnot, but you also we get excited when other drivers come in and do this, right? And we want to see stuff like that. Like you said, situationally it was just terrible. The track they chose, the shitter that she was in, just like, is it this bad if she's a Project 91, right? Like that's kind of where I'm right. Like I don't think so either. I don't, maybe it's not great because again, it's Phoenix, it's hard, and she's never done this before, but it's not like the worst car on the track at a tricky track. Like,
I think the thing for me is like, what even is the approval process? Like,
good question.
Like,
I don't know.
Like, she's done, I think they said on Dale
like
Jr.'s show.
Right?
Yeah, she's done like a couple of ARCA ovals and a few Xfinity road course races, but like, does that really qualify you for the Cup Series? Like,
right? I don't know.
I mean, what is the process? That's what I would like to know. Like,
it's a great question.
It's
that I don't even know if NASCAR knows the answer to it.
Well, I think NASCAR sees like, oh, we've got a lady coming in and she's got experience in race cars and that'll be a good story, and so let's approve it. And like to my point earlier, it just doesn't put Catherine in the best position. Like, it's great that she wants to drive NASCAR. I'm all for it. Like, let's do that. But can we get her like a test session somewhere? Is that I don't know how much the 78
well, of course,
team,
all that's banned now. You can't test at all.
That's
like that kind of doesn't help things.
The reason for that is to prevent Hendrick and Penske and JGR to go out and spend unlimited money and test. Like, how much is the 78 team really going to benefit? And if they do benefit, great. They'll be 1/10 off Cody Ware instead of 2/10. But at least we get, this new driver who's never driven a Cup car on the track for a few hundred laps. Like, is that so bad? Why can that not happen? And with the lack of practice we have, like, she had 20 minutes before qualifying to go out there and try and feel this shitbox of a car out. And we really expect her not to spin out a couple of times in the race. I mean, it's just unrealistic.
And ran her fastest lap of the day in qualifying after that 20-minute practice.
Yeah.
And it reminded me a lot of that time that I think Villeneuve was in like the 50 car at Daytona. And it was just like, again, this is another one that's just like a total shitbox. Or like, what's his name? The IndyCar guy, Connor Daly.
Yeah.
When he got in that 50, and it's just like, yeah, we know this person could drive. Like, we know they have it in them. And like, yeah, this is hard to get into the series and get into this car and race. But like, when you're something that's that bad, it's just like, it makes it even harder. And then, the NASCAR fans would just come down even harder on you if you don't succeed. And really, there's just so many things that played into it of just like, it's just an absolute like shitbox for some of these people, right? Like, it's just, that's the other thing that kind of sucks, right? Is that like, Trackhouse seems to be the only ones that kind of do it right, where like if they have someone come in, they're putting them in a decent car.
Right.
I mean, SVG won in that 91 car. Kimmy had a good race at Watkins Glen until he got caught up in an incident. Yeah, and like, so we've seen that it's possible for other people to come in here and have success, do well, and put on a good performance. And I just like you, just right back to what you said originally, just the situation is just like, it's terrible.
Well, yeah, and I mean, to your point on that, like, SVG drove on a road course. He's a road course guy, so we don't have those questions. Kimi Räikkönen, he's driven everything under the sun. Like, if we put him on a road course, we can be confident that he's not going to be a clown out there.
Yeah.
And like Catherine Legg, she's done ovals on Indy cars. She's raced some road courses in a stock car, but it is just not the same to be in a stock car on an oval, especially one like Phoenix. Like, how do you expect that to go? I mean,
exactly. And like, imagine, take Project 91 out of the picture. Let's stick SVG in the 78 at Phoenix for his first race ever.
Yeah.
Like, he's gonna have a hard time. Like, it's just a weird situation to put this person into, and to expect something other than what happened, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously the incident where she got in a berry and wrecked in front of Suarez. Yeah, that sucks. That's terrible timing for Suarez. Yeah, pretty good run going.
I think that is more of a comment on just her lack of stock car oval experience. Like,
yeah,
because like you said earlier, if you put BJ McLeod in there, he'll probably stay out of the way. And this is not a knock on Catherine. It's just it goes back to what we're saying. Like, it puts you in such a bad position, because if you've been running backmarker cars on an oval for 10 years, how to stay out of the way. But if this is your first time, it's like, you don't really know when to race people, where to be. Like, that stuff is going to happen.
And you don't realize too, like, how much faster the leaders are than you. Mm-hmm. Like, that the guys who do this for a living and are in really good equipment, like, they're just so much faster than you too, right? Like, it's just I don't know. It's a tough situation. Hopefully there's some sort of a fix for it, because we still want to see other drivers come and do NASCAR.
Definitely.
That was really cool that Elio got to do the 500 in the past. Like we said, Kimmy, SVG, some of these guys that have come and done this stuff. Juan Pablo is a guy in that 50 car that's just a total shitbox. We know Juan Pablo knows how to drive a stock car on a road course. We've seen him win on road courses in a stock car, right? And he was like irrelevant in that race he did.
Yeah.
Because he was in just an absolute turd of a car. So situationally, it sucks. Hopefully that's not her last time trying to do something like this. It'd be kind of cool to see her do it like a road course and something that doesn't suck as a little redemption race. But yeah, it's just a tough situation, and you can't have any expectations for that person in that car with that little experience, especially somewhere like Phoenix.
One of the things I did hear about this topic was people talking about, Mike Wallace didn't get approved. Like, please shut the hell up. Like,
I'm
respectfully,
so tired of that.
Shut the hell up, because...
Yeah. No, not even respectfully. Screw you. Shut up.
Like, Mike Wallace, dude, you know, I don't have anything against Mike Wallace. I don't know much about him. Okay,
Yeah.
but all I need to know is he hasn't driven a race car in 10 years. Like,
yeah,
I think
not just like a stock car, like a race car.
a race
like,
car. He's not driven a race car in 10 years. It is not the same thing. Like,
yeah.
if
And we're
you're
stick him out
comparing
there
those
the
two,
fastest race.
yeah, if you're comparing those two, you're just letting me know that you don't have a nuanced opinion on anything.
Right. Put Mike Wallace in the 78 at Phoenix after not driving in 10 years. Tell me how he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys want to make your argument? Yeah, go for it. Yeah, tell me how that goes. Yeah, it's going to be the same story, right? It's just it's just going to be Mike Wallace instead of Catherine Legg. So it's
Agreed.
situationally it sucks. So that's I think we've covered enough of that.
Yeah, I think
everybody
so.
else, all the people who talk about this for a living have covered it plenty, and we gave our little 2 cents as our little baby podcast here.
Yeah. So I told you earlier I didn't get to watch the race with a lot of sound, but I see you have on here maybe some critiques on the booth. What do you want to cover on that?
Well, like it's a Fox thing in general, so I'll start with the booth. It just was like an awkward booth chemistry. Like it sucks when like literally my favorite driver ever is in the booth, and like a buddy of his, Clint Boyer, who he has a good relationship with, like they just seem to be so off sometimes in their chemistry with what they're talking about and whatnot. And there were just a lot of like down, kind of quiet times. It just felt weird during the race. Like it just, I don't know. It was different. Like I mean, it's bad when a Fox broadcast, like when during the Fox races, I'm considering throwing MRN on, and if I didn't have cable that was like 40 seconds behind everybody else, I probably would consider doing something like that, just because there's that chemistry there. There's so much better live commentating and things like that. Now I will say I think maybe they were a little thrown off because they've never done commentating on a race with a tire strategy like this before, where people are trying things and doing different things, and strategies are all over the place, right? I can understand that it can be a little hard to keep up with, but at the same time, just the pure chemistry, it feels off. It kind of reminds me of the season where Fox would just bring in a random extra person, whether it was Tony Stewart or Danica or whatever they would do, and it was just kind of like week to week, you're kind of like not knowing what you're getting. Like these guys, this is what their second season doing this. Like we should know, like they should be a little better than that. And this was really the first race where I noticed that. I don't want to rip into them too much because the rest of the races have been fine. They've been okay. They've there's nothing stellar about it, but like they've gotten the job done. Whereas this week it was a little sloppy. And then my other Fox critique is that I just don't understand how they can't figure out a way that's not an obnoxious red line that we can show who is on what tire and not get rid of the intervals, right? Every time they wanted to show what tire someone was on, they got rid of your intervals on the track, which I'm a bit of a nerd. I like to watch the intervals and see who's gaining, who's doing this and that, right? And like who's even throughout the pack, who's you can kind of see if you watch the leaderboard, so and so is closing gaps. They're making a pass, and then they got another, you see 1 second, they got, they make one pass, they got like an 8-second gap to the next guy in front of them. All of a sudden, after a couple laps, that gap is like 5 seconds. Now you can kind of say to yourself, like, I need to keep an eye on this guy, right? Because now they're kind of working their way through the field. And it's like when we can't make our mind up of whether we want to show who's on the optional tire and who's not, and not show the intervals at the same exact time. Like, just like a little, just give me a little yellow dot or a red dot next to someone's name.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's that easy for me. I'm pretty simple, right? Just something that can indicate for me who's on what tire without having to lose one part of your leaderboard or your broadcast to show this. There's got to be a way that we can show what tire compound are we on, as well as not getting rid of information that I don't think I'm alone in watching intervals and whatnot and wanting to see that live timing. It's just it seemed to me like they were doing like live testing on this while the race was going on, rather than having a plan in place and being able to show these things properly without having to take away other parts of the broadcast in the process of doing so. So that's really just my Fox rant for the day.
Yeah, especially like me watching the race without audio. They ended up later in the race they were able to show who was on the right tire, but to your point they took away the intervals. But let's take that out of the picture. Later in the race they were able to show who was on what tire. Early in the race they did not, and it's like, so you're basically telling me you're figuring this out as you go, which is
exactly
it is unacceptable. Like,
I
I
agree.
hold Fox to a high standard. I hold every broadcast of NASCAR to a high standard because they are the eyes that we are watching the race through. We can't go to every race, so we have to rely on a good broadcast to show us what's going on. And yeah, they would show it real quick, and hopefully you're watching, because otherwise you're not going to be able to see who's on what tire. And I know it's hard. There's 40 cars. I get it, but figure it the fuck out, dude. Like,
and like
IndyCar does it. There's a lot of cars in IndyCar. They are able to tell you who's on what tire. Like
F1 as well. Yeah.
Yes, and F1 you can, people who like Fox could make the argument, oh, F1's only 20 cars. That's fine. But
I don't care.
It's not hard. You have cameras everywhere. Have somebody go through and put a marker on everybody who's on what tire. Like, another thing, apparently some of the teams were like putting red tape on their yellow tires to make it more confusing. There needs to be a rule against that. I mean,
dude, look, here's my thing. Put some little chips on the rim, right? When the red tire goes on, you're able to tell, hey, this is the chip that's out on the track right now, right? I mean, look, I'm no genius, but it seems pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Other than just like trying to like, I mean, do we really have a guy out there with a pair of binoculars like, oh, I think Priest is on yellows. Oh, I know he's on reds. Like,
but they don't even have that. They don't even have that. Like, and maybe they did later in the race, and that's why they were showing it. But we get halfway through stage 3, and they're finally showing us who's on what tire. Like, this needs to happen from the drop of the green flag. Don't be figuring it out during the race. What are we doing?
Exactly. And like two things on that is, one, like NASCAR might not be able to test in the off season and when we're not racing, but guess who can? Fox. Hey, why don't you just throw an old race on and mess with your leaderboard and try to figure it out, right? Like, it's like, I don't know, do something. We already had a race with this tires. It's not like this is the first time we had these alternate tires. We had
Fox
it happen last year.
Both of the races where they did this, did they not?
Yeah. I think the Richmond spring race was them.
No, that was them.
The spring race, I don't know about the second one. I forgot where the second race was where they did it, but like
that, I think that was NBC when they did it at Richmond, but they did it at North Wilkesboro for the All-Star race.
You're right. That's right. And so like, and then also to your point with like the just figuring it out and what felt like just the live testing, right? Like not only are they like the eyes that we're watching this through, but they're also, it's the premier series. It's the top series, right? Like it's what we're here for. It's the best series within NASCAR. It's the top series, right? Yeah. If you're thinking about watching if you're watching an MLB game, you got the best possible broadcast that you have. And if you watch a minor league game and it's not up to par or not what you
can
expect,
understand
there's some things like, right, because it's like, okay, a little smaller budget, whatever, it's not as, or like the G League versus the NBA, right? Like it's not up to the par because it's not like your top series. Like, this is the top series, and we're trying to just figure this stuff out as the race goes on. I just, it's just a bad look, I think, and I hope they learned a lot from this race, and that next time something like this happens, we're a lot better about it. I can be optimistic and just hope, hey, maybe they learned something, and we'll go from there. But yeah, just kind of sloppy.
I feel like they just don't listen to feedback. Like, all over Twitter, and I
gonna do it their way, right?
I get that Twitter is probably the only lens I'm looking through this on, but I mean, there is no positives about their broadcast ever. I mean, and sometimes I will see something and be like, oh, that's really good, but it's very few and far between. I mean, I'll give credit where credit's due, but it's so few and far between with Fox. And I mean, on that point, if we want to say something positive, I didn't really have a big issue with like the zooming this week. Maybe they're listening on that because we know Fox always zooms in like crazy. So their camera work was better. But with racing, you need a good broadcast because they have access to so much more information than we do, and you need a good scoreboard. So I don't know what the deal is, if it's the people in charge, because dude, Fox used to be the best broadcast.
That was it, man. It was like must see TV, man. They blew everyone else out of the water. There were all the other companies, TNT, whoever else had the race. They were like that. Fox was the bar, right? They were trying to get to. They were trying to compare themselves to, and now it's like, geez, like it's just I don't know. It almost it just feels like it's just not there as much as it used to be. The effort, you know, and you know, a lot of people also want to push the argument of like, well, the IndyCar broadcast, I saw all the stuff on that too. It wasn't great either. So I think just in general, they got it. You know, I'm sure it's completely different series, completely different types of tracks and whatnot. But like, I saw the same kind of complaints. I didn't actually watch the St. Petersburg race, so I have nothing to stand on here. But like, yeah, from what I saw, like you said on the internet and the reactions on Twitter, it's just it seemed like a lot of the same complaints as what we have, cartoon people and bad camera work and whatnot. So I just want to see. I don't want to call it a lack of effort because I know those people work really hard to do what they do. It just doesn't seem like it's there as much as it should be, and yeah, that just kind of sucks. So whatever, I think we beat that drum a little bit.
Yeah, that was our weekly Fox rant.
Yeah, you know, and other than that, I mean, back to Phoenix, back to the race.
Yeah,
good time, right? I think one of the things I noted on here was an 8-car wreck at Phoenix. What the hell? Like that one where a 4 wide Custer gets a little loose and gets into Briscoe, and then it's just like all hell breaks loose, and some good cars got taken out. I know Host Far was having a good day. He got wrecked, or
he slammed the wall.
Yeah, he hit it pretty good. He said he got the wind knocked out of him.
I believe it. Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, a couple big shots at Phoenix this week. Again, like I said earlier, above it slamming the wall, and that's got to be that's just got to be such a helpless feeling. And then yeah, the big wreck on the backstretch, that was a different thing. You know, but it's just you know, something we've never really seen before there, a big wreck like that at Phoenix. That was kind of wild.
The only thing I can think of similar to that was like I can't remember what year it was, but Danica was blowing up or something, and she laid oil all over the track on the final lap, and then it was chaotic.
Yeah.
I believe Alan Bessick was on the call, but that's like the only thing I can think of, like a real big wreck at Phoenix. Or there was one on the old layout in the dog leg at some point, where they were going on the grass and stuff. But yeah, you don't typically see a lot of big wrecks there.
What do you think? You pro dog leg or pro go back to the grass?
Well,
what do you, I don't mind what it is now. I don't really have a lot of memories of old Phoenix to be like, oh, we got to get rid of the dog leg, you know?
I think, you know, not to go too sim racer heavy right now, but I think the old Phoenix is more fun to drive. But I do think that I watched the race with, like I said, like my brother and some of his friends, and there's a lot of, you know, extremely casual NASCAR viewers there, and I think the dog leg is fun to watch for them, you know, because they can see like, oh, they're taking a shortcut, and the restarts are
5 wide, and
yeah, the restarts are great. So, I mean, even the old layout, it's really hard to pass, and that track is what it is. So I don't know. They're never gonna go back to it. So
yeah,
I don't know if it's even worth the conversation. But I mean, I'm fine with it. They've made a lot of upgrades to the, you know, the facilities for the fans and stuff. So,
I mean, I'll give Phoenix one thing, dude. They sell out every race. That place is packed.
They do sell out every race, but they did not sell out this weekend.
Oh,
they did not for the first time in,
well, those
years.
people missed out because it was the best Phoenix race we've seen in a long time. So
yeah, but I mean that's just a commentary on how the racing has been, because they've been going and it's been sold out, and you know the racing hasn't been super great, and this is the result of it. And it could be that you know there's 2 races and people want to go to the championship race because it's, you know, it's more fun. But yeah, I mean,
and also the championship weekend, you have all 3 series there. Here it was just ARCA Xfinity Cup, and you know it's a little bit spread out. What was the ARCA race Friday night, and then you know, so it was kind of scheduled like a weekend when the trucks are there. But you know, so kudos to that. But still, just it's the championship weekend features all three, and they're all racing for championships. So yeah, like you said, much bigger.
Yeah, definitely.
Much bigger deal. We've been yapping on for a little bit, but I have a couple last shout outs I
Go
want to
ahead.
give. Josh Berry, fourth place. What a
Great
hell of a
race.
run by Josh Berry.
Turning that team around, showing what that team can actually do when they. I mean, I thought Harrisonburg was really good, but
scored stage points in both stages, which I thought was pretty cool. And just a great run for that 21 car. And then the other thing I have on here is just captioned with "Shut up, Jordan Bianchi," which I think I'm just going to make that a segment every week because he said something on the teardown. He was talking about Chase Elliott sneaks up, finishes 10th place after just an all over the place race. He got some points in stage 1, but finishes 10th. And like I'm listening to the teardown, and Jordan Bianchi's like, that team is just not, good. They're not like where they need to be. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, dude, like Chase came back out of nowhere quietly, and like, look, this is certified not Chase Elliott fan. Me saying this that
you're not
last
a Chase
week
sexual.
at Coda. Yeah, last week at Coda, he sneaks up there and gets he finishes like 5th or something like that.
I think he finished 4th.
Yeah, after just being nowhere to be seen like for most of the day, right? And then this same race, same thing here, not really around much at all. We didn't see much of Chase Elliott. They bring home 10th place after what I think they would probably say was not the best run, right? So I don't want to hear this they're not where they need to be, blah 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 blah. That team is doing just fine, Jordan. All right, shut up.
Yeah, I mean I think they'll definitely win a race this year. I mean, I think them coming back to 4th last weekend showed me a lot about that team. Like, after the spin early, to come back to 4th, I was surprised. I believe I had him in my fantasy lineup that weekend, and I took him out because of what happened in turn 1, and I felt like an idiot when they drove back up to 4th. So, yeah, it was a good run for them.
Yeah, so that's all I got on Phoenix. Do you have anything else?
No, I think I'm good. I mean, it was a solid race. I enjoyed it. Like I said, best Phoenix race in a very long time. Want to move on and make some predictions for Vegas. I mean, I do want to gloat a little bit. I did say that
you did call the winner.
I called Christopher Bell to win 3 in a row.
I forgot about that. You sure did.
I'm gonna have my moment on that. But
are you gonna pick him to go 4 in a row?
I'm thinking about it.
I mean,
he's really good there. He should have won the race in the fall.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go. I'll let you. Or who? Since I predicted better last week, I don't even remember who you had. But
Chastain.
Okay. Yeah. Then let's do it like this. Whoever did better last week on the predictions can go second.
Okay. Cool. So I think it's time for. I think we saw a good bit of this guy this week, and I think we're gonna have at Vegas. I think we're gonna have a little a NASCAR version of the Chili Bowl. I think it's gonna be a lot of Larson and a lot of Bell. And it was a tough choice for me between Larson and Reddick because I think Reddick is really good there too. But I think Larson will get on the board and get a win this week at Vegas. He's really good there. He's always been good there, and I think. Like I said, I think we might see him and Bell really kind of be the front runners for this race. And my pick, Kyle Larson for Vegas.
Kyle Larson, okay. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely had success there before. I think he obviously won there in 2021. I believe he won. He won against Reddick in the next gen. I guess that must have been this race last season. So, I'll be honest. I'm up in the air between Reddick and Bell, so I'm going to try and talk myself into this.
I like it.
Bell has obviously, he's had some good luck in Atlanta and Coda, let's say. I mean, he drove his ass off at Coda, but, road course circumstantial. And then he had the dominant car yesterday. So, yeah, I don't know. This is a tough one. I'm going to go with Bell again.
I like it.
That's the feeling I get. I think he's either gonna win or be 2 laps down, like with some speeding penalty or something.
Also, just so you know, I wanted to look at it just because of what you had said. Kyle Larson did win there in 2021, but he's also won there twice since. He won there in 2023 in the playoffs, and then he won the first Vegas trip
that's right.
last year as well. So
that's right.
So pretty good there, and should be a good race. We all know how well this car races on the mile and a halfs, and it'll be hopefully another quality race like we're used to on the mile and a halfs.
Yep, it should be good. I think we've pretty much covered everything. That I'm gonna have to rest my vocal cords after this one, but I have no issue with that because this was it was definitely a great episode. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and thank everybody for listening. I have had some good. I've had some good feedback on the podcast this week. People really enjoy it, so we really appreciate y'all listening. We enjoy doing it. Give us a like on YouTube. Rate the podcast. I really should have a spiel here for the outro, but
we'll get it. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Big shout out to Light Beer and Nicotine Patches.
That's right. Yeah,
they extended episode.
Absolutely. I mean, dude, I enjoyed this time slot.
Yeah,
I will say that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I guess we will see you guys next Wednesday.
Absolutely.
See you.
Peace.